Beat 2, 3, 4. Wow, Bart Keeler joining us from Vegas. I have to promote this. So go ahead and filibuster and discuss how life has been so far while you're actually working there in Las Vegas and
Yeah.
spending time first thing in the morning
Yeah.
there time hanging out with us.
Yeah. So I actually am working despite having fun in the evenings. I had to be a part of a 4-hour training class yesterday over a topic that is really important, but very technical. So for all of you who don't know, I work in marketing, but I work for a cable manufacturer, and we were partnering with some of our industry leaders to present information about systems for sustainable, intelligent buildings. Um, and it was interesting as the social media manager for this company trying to explain what exactly we're talking about in real time while they're talking about it and using a lot of numbers and formulas that go right above my head. There's a lot of math involved, and I'm like, yeah, those are numbers, great.
Yes.
Um, it's been fun though, but yeah, first time in Vegas. And it's unfortunate that I'm not able to like really fully explore it because we have so many things lined up and planned for you already, right? Like you're working on a trade show floor, you've got training seminars, and then you go to dinner with corporate customers, and they pick where you're going, and you're like, all right, well, we're just following you there. But it's it's 7 o'clock out here in Vegas, which still surprises me that this is considered Pacific time zone, but I don't know. I didn't make time zones.
I didn't either. And general incoherence, I'm definitely right there with you, especially during this hour. And you can tell kind of that the hotel has that Vegas-y feel by looking
Oh
at
yeah,
the backdrop.
yeah. There's a lot of marble and stone that feels very unnecessary.
Yes. All right. So first question, how long do we have you?
About you got me till what 7:30 my time, 10:30
Okay.
your time. So
Okay.
yeah,
So we got you at the bottom of the hour. All
yeah.
right, cool. Okay. So I will push the gossip, rumor, and innuendo to the side until we were done. All right. So let's go backward before we go forward and look at the match last time out from USMNT. What now that you've had a little while to catch your breath and look at it from 30,000 feet, what'd you think?
Well, I think the most concerning thing is that I'm not sure what lessons were learned. And by that I mean we've had a performance like this in a recent memory of a Berhalter coached U.S. men's national team, um, where he does, and I understand why you would do this in a friendly, emphasize playing a very specific way, and we need to, at all costs, try to play this way with these details. Um, and I understand that. Like, obviously, you want to try to perfect what you want to do in these friendlies because you might not have the opportunities to do that when games matter. The problem that I'm having is hearing the post-match comments about players not really sure of what their duties and responsibilities were. Berhalter saying very plainly in his press conference yesterday that he didn't think that the guys understood the details that they were supposed to be executing on. That's concerning because we're 4 years into the Berhalter, 4 years
Yeah.
into the Berhalter regime, and we should not be having system kinks like what we saw against Japan, and especially a Japan team. And this is another kind of concerning point that anyone who's watched Japan would have told you that they're probably going to try to press high, try to turn you over, and beat you on the counterattack. And not that Japan, they're a very talented team. They're very individually technically gifted. So you have a team that not only has a really high work rate, but then the technical ability to beat you when they turn the ball over. Unlike, they're basically New York Red Bulls, but actually talented. And Berhalter seemed like the team didn't have any solution for that. Now I'm not concerned in the micro because like I don't think Wales or England or Iran mirror that style of play whatsoever, right? I don't think that Wales is going to give us a high press and try to turn it over on our back line. I don't think England is that way necessarily either. They're definitely teams that prefer to sit a little more, but that's a really big tip of a way to disrupt what we want to do very easily is just give us a little pressure. So that was really concerning that Berhalter and team seemed to indicate that they didn't really do anything to um, play against that style of play that they were going to see. Hopefully, again, that's just because we were so focused on ourselves and doing what we need to do. But it also seemed like a missed opportunity to practice against this press. And again, it just there were no solutions on the field present, and that was concerning.
You look at, and I know a lot of folks gravitated toward the moment with Jesus Ferreira with the missed header early on, and you sit there and you
Yeah.
can talk about the tenor of a game changing and things like that. I know that coming into today, a lot of folks are wondering about roster rotation,
Mhm.
and we went through Joe Prince Wright's notions about what he anticipated. We know first and foremost, we'll take it a step at a time. We know that Pulisic and Pepe will be
Yes.
engaged today. With you at 11 o'clock in the morning, your time, probably pulling out
Yeah.
a monitor or something like that. It's like,
No, actually, I fortunately have this morning off, so I
ah,
will be going to a place called Hennessy's here in Las Vegas to watch with the Vegas chapter of American Outlaws. So
ah,
I'll be there watching with them. I don't have to do anything until 2 p.m. I'll be working, but I can work while watching the game.
okay.
I do have some actual assignments that I need to get done as well, but I'll be watching at a bar with friends, so it'll be fun.
Yes, so we'll get you off the air in time for the Canada match at 9, and in
Yeah.
time for the U.S. match at 11. But we'll start with Pepe and Pulisic. Pulisic's knock is apparently, allegedly, probably, hopefully, maybe a thing of the past, and so Pulisic and Pepe will be
Yeah.
a part of Pulisic and Pepe part of the program for 3GB.
Yeah, I think Pulisic made sense. I don't think when the initial kind of injury was reported, no one seemed incredibly concerned. Unlike Reggie Cannon, who unfortunately is like out.
Yes.
Um, they didn't even like U.S. Soccer didn't. Usually they do report like, oh, this person's injured. They didn't even do that really with Pulisic, other than like, hey, it was a lineup note, not a breaking news, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'm glad he's going to play though, because we need him to get minutes with this team ahead of the World Cup. For Ricardo Pepi, this is his last opportunity. We still continue to see strikers struggle in the system that Greg Berhalter forces on this team. I was going back to the numbers yesterday, and we had a total of 5 goal contributions during 14 World Cup qualifying matches from strikers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not like that's a concerning number on its face value. Um, that said, Pepe was 4 of those goal contributions, so he definitely has, as Berhalter has mentioned many times, trying to defend calling up a man who up until recently hadn't scored in almost a year for club or country. And I appreciate him pointing out that Pepe has those numbers. I think today would be a great time for Ricardo Pepe to show again why he's valued in Berhalter's eyes. But his last goal was last October for the U.S. men's national team, anyway. And I know Berhalter said yesterday in a quote that I think has been picked apart a little too much, but is still very telling. He basically said, and I'll try to get it as close as I can, but he said, I don't need him to score 5 goals. I just need him to do what we need him to do in the system. And that kind of got scrutinized. So if you don't mind, I'm going to kind of do both sides of this. But I think you're right in that Pepe doesn't need to go score 5 goals, right? Like I think that that's an over exaggeration. But his point is that we're not looking for him to bang in a bunch of goals. We need him to play the way we want a striker to play in the system, meaning that we're dropping deep to connect midfield to the forward line. We're taking up space and occupying center backs. We're making runs into the box. The problem with that Berhalter quote is that it seems to just underline the problem that Berhalter has at the national team level right now, which is we don't have strikers who score, period. We could talk about Jesus Ferreira's miss, which, yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree that he probably should have at least put his header on frame,
Yeah.
right? I think anyone who says that has to be a goal is a little naive. I mean, we've seen strikers miss those before. The concern is that was the only chance we had all game, right? So if you need to create, if you only create 1 or 2 chances a game for your striker, you're just not going to score a lot of goals, period. So again, when you look back at qualifying and you only had 5 goal contributions, 4 goals and 1 assist from strikers, period, and that included a game that included 2 games that we scored more than 3 goals, right? We scored 4 against Honduras, we scored 5 against Panama. Honduras, we had a Pepe goal and an assist, and Panama, we had a Jesus Ferreira goal. Those aren't great numbers, but then when you break it down, we only average 1.4 goals a game in qualifying, period. So
Yeah.
it's not like it's not like, oh, well, the striker is there and we know that they're not great, but hey, they're doing a good job of moving a center back here or taking away here so that Pulisic or these guys can go. We're just not scoring a lot of goals, and that's concerning going up against teams who will be able to score against us. I mean, I know England and Wales aren't prolific goal scorers, but they have guys on their team who absolutely can score goals, and it hasn't shown that way for the U.S. So I would push back against Berhalter and say, yeah, I do want to see his striker score goals, and I would rather him score goals than play your system perfectly, because your system just quite honestly isn't producing the goals that we need. And the problem is, throughout qualifying, Greg Berhalter could very much lean on we only conceded so many goals. And that's true. We conceded 10 goals throughout 14 matches of qualifying. That's awesome. But as we saw against Japan, you just gave up 2 goals and you created a whole maybe 2 chances in the match. That's not okay. So I'm glad Pepe's going to get this opportunity. I'm concerned that we're just still not seeing any production out of a striker position. And to me, that comes down to if no striker looks good in your system, Greg Berhalter, whose fault is that?
All right. So I found the quote in full. It says, I don't need him to score 5 goals tomorrow. We need him to play like a forward in our system, and hopefully he gets opportunities, and hopefully he takes the opportunities well. It's stuff he's done before for us. I'm confident he can do tomorrow.
And I think Berhalter is right to give Pepe a chance, right? Because you have Ferreira, Sargent, and Pepe in this camp, 3 young strikers who at various points in their career have been really hot. Ferreira is still pretty hot. Sargent is finding his form again. Pepe needs a little bit of a confidence boost. I still think it's very foolish of Greg Berhalter to have not considered Jordan Pefok, and continues to still speak as if Jordan Pefok isn't even a consideration for a World Cup. And I think, John, you've been around this game long enough. You always got to bring the hot hand, right? You got to bring a striker who's scoring goals.
Yeah.
Even if they don't necessarily fit your system, you have 26 players on this roster, okay? You can afford to bring in a striker who's scoring at the Bundesliga level, who scored almost 20 goals last season, I know it's the Swiss League, but across all competitions last year, 20 plus goals, and is playing and scoring and assisting for the best team in Germany right now. I think you can find room. If you're bringing Aaron Long, who, you bring him because of leadership or whatever bullshit excuse you're making at this point in time, after watching him against Japan, you can bring a guy who actually produces. And I get it. He hasn't produced for the men's national team. Now there's Josh Sargent. You're still riding with him.
Yeah.
Ferreira's only got 1 goal for you again. Well, he's got more than 1 goal. He only has 1 goal for you against real teams. I'm sorry, Grenada doesn't count.
Yeah.
At some point, you have to understand that you need guys who are going to score, and hopefully Pepe can do that today. I personally need to see him score a goal. That's just me.
Yeah. So then do this for me. In the Bart Keeler power rankings, rank the strikers for the U.S. for me in your power ranking order. How would you line them up in order of importance?
So I still think Josh Sargent is the type of forward that would work best in the Berhalter system. And I think he, at the club level, is now showing that he can score. So I would put him at 1.
Okay.
I would put right now Pepe at 2. Because again, I understand the history of that he has scored. Granted, I think that the Honduras game is a little bit of a break from the Berhalter system. So I'd argue that he hasn't really scored in the system. We were pushing guys forward, trying to score a bunch of goals, but he did. I would put Pflock third because I understand that he doesn't, quote, fit the system. But I would bring him regardless. And I would have Ferreira. Like, I don't like Ferreira is my fourth striker, if you will, but that's because I think he's a good enough player to play a lot. Like, you need him on the field or on your team because he could be valuable in a lot of ways. I think he's a very talented player. I don't know if he's necessarily like an out and out striker. So that's kind of where I put him in that 4 position. I know a lot of people think that he's probably better as a 10 or withdrawn forward in a 2 forward system. And obviously that's not the way Berhalter plays. But for me, Ferreira just doesn't convert enough chances. And not even talking about that Japan match, we're talking about the entire sample size of his time with the national team since 2021. He just hasn't converted the chances that he needs. Even in that Grenada match, we got a lot of chances. He only got a couple goals. So it's not like he's banging them home when he's on fire either. So it would be Sergeant Pepe, Pflock, Ferreira, about 700 other people, and then Jossie Zardes.
Okay.
Sorry, I had to get one of those in there.
Well, no, nothing wrong with that. But so let's follow you up on your BS comment from a couple of minutes ago and go to the back now.
Yeah.
Center back. How much rotation are you anticipating today at the back, center back / left and right, first and foremost? When you look at the lineup, how much rotation are you anticipating those 4 at the back?
So I don't think Walker Zimmerman will or should be dropped. I don't think he had a great game against Japan. I think that's valid. No one did. But I do think that Walker is your leader. There's a reason he was the captain. And I think he's been your most reliable center back throughout qualifying. I think you keep him there. He's also, when you're talking about, testing and experimenting, he's your constant. And to me, you would rotate in either Mark McKenzie or Eric Palmer Brown. You saw McKenzie get the run out in the second half of last game. I think it would be wise to maybe start him, right? And if you want to make a change at halftime to either Eric Palmer Brown for either McKenzie or Zimmerman, I think that would be a good. That's my wake up alarm.
There's your wake up alarm.
I happen to wake up early for you. But I would start McKenzie and Zimmerman to see, because there were good things from that second half from them. And I think then you rotate in Eric Palmer Brown for one of them at halftime. I would personally give Zimmerman a break, just from just a minutes load type of thing. It's like, yeah, you played all 90 last time. Give us 45 to 60 this time, and then take a seat, make great content with your cute son. So
there you go,
little baby.
Yes. And then what about on the left and the right? What are you looking at? Yeah. JPW had Scally and Dest in some combination.
So yeah, I'm not sure because I very much don't think Sam Vines was good. And I don't think you'll see him playing this game because of, again, you're experimenting and testing out. I would like to see Scally at left back because I would like to just see how that compares to what we saw with Sam Vines. However, it could be that Berhalter tries Dest at left back as another trial for the whole what happens if Jedi isn't able to play in the World Cup for some reason. Yeah. Because I do think that very much Greg Berhalter sees Sergiño Dest as his backup left back while also being your starting right back. But I would like to see Scally at left back. I don't think that's his best position. I'd rather see him at right back, but I think you'll see Dest or Yedlin at right back. And I think you'll see Scally at left back. He has, obviously he has the ability to play both sides, but he's a naturally right-footed player, a natural right back. I'd rather see him at right back, but if he plays at left back today, it'll be good to see if it's just, is it better than what we saw with a true left back in Sam Vines on Friday?
And then in net, the idea, yes, Matt Turner right now is probably your number one. There was a notion.
Probably not for Greg Berhalter, but yeah, he's mine.
Yeah. Now you're looking at, are you giving Horvath and Sean Johnson 45 each? What are you looking at here?
So this is the question of does Greg Berhalter see Zach Steffen as his number one?
Yeah.
And the reason why we kind of have this theory Meg Swanek, who does a lot of great reporting beyond just what happens on a match. She revealed yesterday that Ricardo Pepe, for some reason, now has started eating cheese for breakfast because once he moved to Europe, he started eating cheese for breakfast. And I guess before that, he didn't eat cheese at breakfast, which I'm going, what did you put on your eggs, man? But she does a lot of cool reporting like that. But she kind of insinuated, Greg Berhalter made a comment yesterday that there were 5 guys who he would consider starters who were injured and not in camp. Now,
Yeah.
a lot of people kind of went through that process of elimination. You know, I think you can very much say that it's Tim Weah, is very much Jedi Robinson. Yunus Musa is probably a starter as well. So there's 3.
Yeah.
4 could be, is that Chris Richards? Is it Zach Steffen maybe? Some people said, it might be Miles Robinson. So there's a lot of people who were not quite sure who those 5 starters are.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot. She kind of, and I agree with her. I think there's a lot of evidence to support that Greg Berhalter still sees Zach Steffen as his starter, which I vehemently disagree with. I think Matt Turner is. I think Matt Turner is a better goalkeeper, and this is again the problem with Greg Berhalter is he hyper focuses on one specific characteristic or quality of a player that he likes within his system. And it may not even be that they're like that great at that, but like, they're good at this, so he likes that. And Zach Steffen is mildly better with the ball at his feet,
but he's prone to go mentally walkabout.
Yeah. So, and that's my thing is I don't even think Zach Steffen's that much better with the ball at his feet. I think he's more comfortable because he's played soccer longer than Matt Turner. Matt Turner obviously didn't really come to soccer until his teenage years. So he is still learning. But as we've seen with, I'm going to bring this back to Atlanta United, Rocco Real is phenomenal with the ball at his feet. Like he's a phenomenal ball playing goalkeeper. He's not a very strong shot stopper. I could talk long and hard about Rocco Rios and how a lot of the goals that have been scored. Yeah, I still don't think a lot of the goals that Rocco conceded were all Rocco's fault. But Raul Gudiño, not great with his feet. That hasn't really impacted the way Atlanta United wants to play. And I think that if you're looking at what you want from your goalkeeper, look, you can look at Alisson and Ederson. They're still really darn good shot stoppers, right? Like they're still really good at keeping the ball out of the back of the net. It helps that they're really good with the ball at their feet. But I want a goalkeeper who's going to keep the ball out of the back of the net. And I think Matt Turner is better at that than Zach Steffen. And I would have Matt Turner as my number 1. And therefore, I would start Matt Turner and just play him. Like, hey, this is not the time to like give people minutes for the fun of it, right? I mean, we saw Sean Johnson get minutes in the summer. You saw Horvath get minutes in the summer. They've played recently. I think right now you are trying to get ready for the World Cup, and I would put Matt Turner in personally because he's my number 1 for all 90 minutes. And you should have been able to gather data during the training week that you've had on Johnson and Horvath.
Sam Williamson in the Twitch pitch, 2 points, both of them strikerish. One, he's wishing that PFOC were to be unleashed, and then his other question is, you wouldn't take a chance on Brandon Vasquez?
No, because I've had him in my fantasy team for a while, and he was really good, but he hasn't scored recently, so he has cooled off a lot. And I do think there's some like legitimate truth to the fact that he has not at any point been a part of a Greg Berhalter camp. And I am not a fan of just bringing a guy in for the World Cup, right? I still think you want a guy who's been in the squad, who people know, and not necessarily knows the Berhalter system, but just knows the general philosophy, tactics, and mentality of the team. I think it's a shame that Vasquez hasn't been looked at before this, but I think of him similar to the way, it's not quite the same, but like Georgi Mihailovic is a dude who I think could very much help this team.
Agreed.
But he hasn't really been a part of a Berhalter camp since 2019. And even though he's been very good in MLS for a while, I don't think I would trust him to be able to execute the system, even when he has been in camps for the men's national team at the youth level. He hasn't looked fantastic in the U23 tournament, but it just wouldn't. I don't know if now's the time, right? And I also would go back to what I've been saying to a lot of people who on Atlanta United Twitter keep saying like, why don't we keep Vasquez? And it's like, y'all, Vasquez wasn't this good until literally this year. Jordan Peacock has been scoring goals in Europe, and I don't just mean at a equivalent level to MLS Swiss League. He's been doing it in Europa League. He's doing it now in the Bundesliga. He's been scoring buckets of goals for several years.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me carries a lot more weight than a really good year from Brandon Vasquez, who up until this point, I'm sorry guys, hasn't shown any indication that he would be a U.S. men's national team player.
Yeah. For me, you can't. I mean, because we went through the Bart Keeler power rankings, and Brandon Vasquez was not in your top 5. I can't devote space to someone who hasn't been in a national team camp, and just because he's a hot hand, you're heading into a World Cup.
Yeah,
it's just like there haven't been any national team reps, and yeah, this is cool, and that's really about all I can say about it. It's cool to see. He was part of he was not the same player at Atlanta United. He was part of a numbers allocation game with expansion teams. It's like you had to leave some folks unprotected, and it was natural to understand that Brandon Vasquez would be unprotected in that situation because of everyone else that you had to protect. And it just so happens that in this system in Cincinnati, he has been unlocked. Good on him for it.
Yeah,
but not right now. Maybe if he keeps this up over the next handful of years.
Yeah, and I think that would be he's still young enough to where he could be the striker for 2026. That is absolutely, he's still in the young enough striker pool, right? Like PFOC is weirdly older and he's still in his like not even mid 20s yet. I think he's like 24, 25, if I'm remembering correctly. Vasquez a little younger than that, and then you have the trio of strikers that we talked about earlier. So Brandon Vasquez still has a very good chance to be a player for the U.S. men's national team for years to come. It's the same thing I would kind of feel about Mihailovic would be one, like he's going to get a move to Europe at the end of the season. That could very much catapult him into a U.S. men's national team picture going forward. Same with Gabriel Slonina, right? Like a very good young goalkeeper. Hopefully, and when he, I don't know what Chelsea has in mind for him. I don't think,
loading.
Not sure. I don't know what the Chelsea loan army will look like now that Abramovich isn't fully in charge, but I could see him getting loaned to European clubs at least. I don't think he'll stay with Chicago for much longer.
Right.
And hey, that's a great bet on your future. I would say that Vasquez is just not his. It doesn't make sense. And if you want to talk hot hands, again, PFOC has the hot hand. If you want to talk hot hands in MLS, you still have Jesus Ferreira. So I think you want a hot hand, I think, in a World Cup roster. That is valid. But you have those options already. And I think you have better options than what Brandon Vasquez is.
All right, one more before you go, so you can sample the $2.99 breakfast bar at whatever establishment that you are hanging out with that'll have steak and eggs from one end of the world to the other. With England and Germany yesterday, absolute 3-3 madness, and if I had, after you're gone, I'll check the over and find out what the over was at 5.5, just so folks figure out what they missed out on the juice boxes yesterday. Harry Maguire, he was right there with it. If you're a fan of either one, which one are you worried more? If you're a fan of England for what happened in the first 65 and not the last 25, or Germany with what happened in the last 25 and not the first 65? Give you a brain teaser before you head to breakfast.
So I think Germany has a little bit of concern because they also weren't great against Hungary. But I would argue that they were still creating a lot of chances. And as you saw against England, they still scored 3 goals. They created a good number of chances. So that's where you talk about like XG, right? Like eventually, if you create enough chances, eventually they're just going to score, right? That's the problem I have with the U.S. men's national team from Friday is that, okay, well, yes, Ferreira missed the one chance we had. We probably should have tried to create more than one chance. England right now does have some real questions and have had questions since making the run to the final Euro last year. I don't know if if Gareth Southgate needs to have a sit down with Serena Vaigman to kind of talk about like, hey, how do I get the best out of my team right now?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the fact that England, it's cool that they ended up coming back to get a draw from that game, which, by the way, ultimately doesn't matter because they're still
No.
relegated.
Correct.
And that would be what I would say is it doesn't really matter for England. Congratulations, you showed fight when you were already down. It seemed like they were playing for pride, and that's good.
Yeah.
Right? If you're an England fan, they were playing for pride, but I would be concerned. I would be concerned because you're giving up a lot of goals, which was the hallmark of England in that Euro run. Was they were pretty tight defensively, able to score opportunistic goals, and they haven't shown that. And they've been giving up a lot of goals. That is concerning if I'm an England fan.
Yeah.
I was going back through Thought Bob and I forgot that they lost 4-0 to Hungary. Yeah.
Well, yes,
So,
4.
a Hungary team that has been incredibly fun to watch. I'm not going to praise too much more about that country, but
No.
Hungary's been competing well in this particular edition of the Nations League, but England, man, you're looking at, I think, let's see, during this, you've given up 3 to Germany, 1 to England, 4 to Hungary, and that's just this part of the Nations League. You got a home draw against Italy. Gave up a lot of goals recently. That would be more concerning to me than anything.
Yes, that is accurate. So let's see. 3, 4, 8. Yeah. 9 in 5 matches, 9 in the last 5 matches, 10 in the group stage in Group 3, and they are no longer going to be a part of League A.
Shut out 1, 2, 3, 4 times.
Yeah.
I'm looking at 4 times blanked during this nation's out of 6 matches.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's not great.
Yeah, that's referred to as not good. Yeah. All right. So when are you on this end of the planet again?
So I come back home on Thursday.
In
Thursday
theory.
night.
In theory,
yeah. I get off a plane at 7:30, I think, in Atlanta, and then I have a game in the Sons of Pitches League at 8:55. So we're gonna see if we're gonna make that.
Man, you're coming off the plane hot, man.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if that can happen because I did not bring any of my gear with me so I'll have to go home and get it.
Somebody ought to meet you at the airport and be like a concierge.
Like, come get me.
Come get me
maybe
my gear.
Yeah, but I'll be back this weekend. Be able to watch the Atlanta United game up in New England and see how they finish out the season. I know we think that we have a playoff chance. I am still sticking to my prediction from back in. Hold on, I took a screenshot. August. Where is it? August 15th, when I said we aren't making the playoffs this year.
6 weeks ago.
So,
all right.
Yeah,
No.
We can talk about Atlanta United and their struggles.
Oh, absolutely. When you come back, we will discuss the USMNT window and Atlanta United after New England as well next week. So
it's important to look good today, though. You're playing against Saudi Arabia team who, though they finished higher than Japan in their qualifying group, I don't think anyone would say that they're a better team than Japan.
No.
They're missing, I think, 4 starters from the game that they just played.
Right.
It's important to look good for a number of reasons, not just to make fans like me a little, more a little more settled, less uneasy, but also because you need to have a positive feeling heading into the World Cup, and you need to show that you've corrected some of the problems you had on Friday, which is just at this point completing passes, because that was a struggle all day on Friday.
Because Bart, it is better to look good than to feel good. You know that.
Yeah.
Absolutely, that is the way. You have to look good, better to look good than to feel good. Bart, enjoy your breakfast buffet. Thanks for walking through the forbidden door at an incredibly early hour in the Pacific time zone. Be safe, my friend, especially coming back in town when the madness is going to start with Ian.
I have shout out to anyone who's in Florida or anything. Please stay safe. We have a couple of people on our team right now that they're having to change flights. We're planning to stay till Thursday and unfortunately have to get home and help family prepare for this. So if you're in Florida, stay safe. even those people in Orlando stay safe.
Yes, what he said. Bart, thanks for your time, my friend, and we will catch up with you next week.
See y'all.